I recently started to put together a collection of my portrait photography. During this, I began thinking about a definition of a portrait. Generally, I'm of the opinion that there are no rules, and that if you do happen to find one, definitely make sure you break it. Before I start trying to be all clever and saying that there are no real rules as to what a portrait actually is, let's start by saying that the term is often used to describe a picture of a person. Often it's of their head and shoulders, sometimes a bit more. It feels pretty boring to describe it that way, but it's a fair and fairly useful definition. We know what we're talking about, but hopefully we know that it isn't simply limited to that. Portraits, like all art, are surely about how it makes us feel. Therefore, we would want all of the possibilities of photography to be able to contribute to that feeling, to make a better picture, to make a better portrait. So it's certainly not just about a person's face. By including more of the body, the posture can be revealing, a gesture too. Hands, I think, are particularly evocative. And it doesn't have to even include their face. You certainly miss out on a lot of information that way. Their face could be covered for a number of reasons. A bride's face covered by a veil, an Arctic explorer with much of their face protected from the cold. In these examples, hiding the face, taking that information away, is a powerful way of telling a story about a person. A portrait does not have to show just one person. A portrait can be about people and their relationship to each other. If there are two people in a picture, both people don't have to necessarily be the subject. For example, pictures of a parent and their child can often reveal much more about the parent, I think, than the child, especially when they're very young. A portrait doesn't have to be posed. A candid picture taken of a stranger in a street is still a portrait. Even if you never speak to them or never see them again, it's still a portrait. So what then is the point of a portrait of a stranger? Here we start to get to the heart of things, because a portrait of someone isn't necessarily purely about them or for them. When we see a picture of a person, whether we know them or not, we often see ourselves and our own feelings. That goes for the viewer and the photographer especially. As they say, the camera shoots both ways. And don't think of a picture having to be entirely either posed or candid. It's quite possible that it can be somewhere in between. A person may sit for a picture, but an expression or a moment can be perfectly candid. Portraits don't have to be of human people. Portraits of animal people can be wonderful too. And as I've said before, a portrait isn't all about the subject. A picture is about what it's like to be alive, not just human alive, to feel sad and quiet and happy and bouncy. And if you can't see yourself in a picture of a cat or a dog, you definitely need to take a good look at yourself. So does a portrait have to include any person at all? What about a picture of a person's room, their clothes, their desk? Maybe sometimes more is revealed if the subject gets completely out of the way. Perhaps the only defining thing about a portrait is that there is a subject. So a portrait without the subject in the frame is still a portrait. It reminds me of one of my favourite photography quotes, which I'm sure I'll return to. Don't just take photos of people, take photos about people. My Facebook profile picture at the moment is of a small bird on a beach in Miami. I couldn't take a better picture of me if I tried. It's not a picture of me smiling at the camera, it's even more me than that.